Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Our guy JP Finlay, of course, host B. Mitch and Finlay weekdays on 106.7 The Fan. And JP, first thing we have to do is confirm something with you because I asked. You know, we've been trying to when we're out there for camp. I've been out there most days. Wasn't out there today. But just go up to someone. Hey, are you free at 5 o'clock? Can you come on the show? Everyone's like, yeah, cool. No, I'd love to do it. And I asked Anthony how did he book you today? And this is Anthony's version of events. And I'm just curious what it sounded like from your side of things. So Anthony, go ahead and play back your answer for JP.
Let me reenact how it went, Greg.
Okay.
Have you seen the movie Friday?
I have seen the movie Friday.
So I'm Debo.
Okay.
And I'm walking up to Craig and Dede, who's JP and B. Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, JP! What are you doing at 5? It doesn't matter what you're doing at 5. You're coming on the Hoffman show. It went like that.
JP?
Yeah, it was sort of like that, except not at all.
That's
no.
It's kind of what I expected.
That's my guy. You're my guy. Like, I'm happy to come on, dude. And Ant asked. I feel like today was a little crazy because we did like this segment with Pete that went long, and I'm kind of crazy anyway. So I feel like I was probably a little bit short with Ant, but it was totally reasonable booking.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of the funny part about it. If Ant had just been like, "Hey man, are you willing to come on at 5 o'clock?" You would have been like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." But he chose to do that because he did, and I guess that's where we're at.
None of that, Anthony. None of that happened. Are you going to tell Greg the truth?
JP, it is time for you to be honest with everyone here, or do I need to go get Jeff and B. Mitch?
Did that really happen?
No, I'm joking. JP is really confused.
Yeah, because sometimes Anthony does this where he just like is in so far in his own joke that he doesn't realize like it's not funny and it doesn't make any sense and nobody like what planet are you on? So I think we're gonna do here.
Now.
Now I mean it took us to get it there. Anthony, I'm gonna remove you from the stream, and you're out of this segment now. And I might assess you a fine because we got so far sideways. We'll revisit that later. JP Finlay is with us, of course, insider for NBC4 and host of B. Mitch and Finlay on 106.7 The Fan. So they went hard yesterday, 2.5-hour practice. They decided to lighten it up today. The structure of practice has been a major talking point. What have you made of how they've handled the Eric Bieniemy era of being in charge?
I mean, it's definitely faster. And one thing I like is there's way less standing around kind of at any moment. I'm sure you've seen this. Now that they've had the pads on the last few days, when the O-line and D-line are doing their drills, they have 7-on-7 or wide receiver DB going at the same time, which I like a lot. It's highly like stimulating to watch, really, just as like a fan even. I checked in with a staffer over there because to me what I find pretty interesting is people talk about the pace, but I wanted like a number on it, and I was told that the actual plays being run in practice is probably up. Maybe not quite 20%, but like 17, 18%, the number of plays going. And I was told for a couple different reasons. One, a lot of Scott's offense was play action vertical shot. So you got wide outs and then in turn DBs running 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. A lot of Eric's offense is much quicker. I mean, these are basic. This isn't Scott versus Eric. This is Air Coryell versus West Coast, right? Like it's a lot quicker timing routes underneath stuff. So the guys don't have to physically travel as far. And they've also done a lot of goal line work. I don't know if you've noticed that, Hoff.
Yeah,
but,
no, they have.
You know, when you're at the goal line, there's not as much room to cover. So it's like things are going faster. and the systems are different, and it all kind of pushes towards increased, I don't know that you would call it productivity, but increased
volume.
playing, volume.
Yeah. It's something that Logan and I have talked about, and it's funny because Logan's obviously been a lot of different places under different coaches, seen a lot of football, and his brain on day one of camp nearly exploded because it was an hour and a half practice, and I think they ran 80 plays, and he's like, I have never seen that before in my life. And so I think it's cool, though, because we all – like, we want to make it about this urgency, and there is that. Like, that is real. It's obvious to anyone that is out there. But like you said, there's so much thought that goes into it. And I feel like a lot of times when we talk about football in general, like, it's all this desire and want to and, attitude, effort type of stuff. And it's like, no, they're actually just smart in how they design practice, and then they have that other stuff. And I think it's smart, JP, that you point that out because I think it also speaks to a larger, like, improved structure that hopefully will carry over into how the actual offense runs in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is, so B-Mitch played for Andy Reid in Philly, obviously.
Yeah.
And when they hired the enemy, he's like, just wait, you'll see how much more they run at practice. And I was like, what do you mean? Like running laps? He's like, no. It's just every drill, every in and out of the huddle, all the breaks are just so much faster. And sure enough, it's happening. And think about it, that was 20 years ago now, right? When Brian was playing in Philly. And, there's so much excitement around the enemy. And, I feel like the fans get really excited when he kind of, yells at players or is clearly excited on the sideline. But the truth of it is we have no idea if any of this is going to work. Like, you got a big problem at left guard. Howell has looked uneven, like that. I think of it, you can kind of, not to equate the two, but when Chip Kelly really exploded at Oregon, much of that was he was just trying to run significantly more plays than the other team, right? But then Chip Kelly tried the same thing at Philly, it just completely didn't work. So I think the efficiency and the increased volume of practices and all that is cool. It's fun to watch. I still don't know that it's going to work because of the personnel.
JP Finlay with us here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. Of course, that's the same place you can listen to B. Mitch and Finlay every weekday, 10 to 2. All right, let's get into the personnel. You say how the word you use is uneven so far through camp?
Yeah. I mean, would you disagree?
No, not at all. I'm just curious, like, how you would expand on that. And, because, one of the things that I've been big on and talking about is, like, there is uneven by design. Like, some periods are harder than other. You're not going to be as good in a blitz period as you are in 7-on-7. And I feel like he's generally been kind of where he's supposed to be based off his experience level and my expectations of him period to period. But, if it's Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter if it's blitz, he's going to be great. Like, that's kind of the point. That's why he's Patrick Mahomes. But so I'm curious, as you expand on what uneven means to you, how that translates to kind of your I don't want to say prediction, but like your expectations of him, where you thought he would be and where he is and where he needs to go.
Yeah, no, it's well said. I honestly think he's exactly where we should all expect him to be. You said expectations a few times there. I think there are some wild expectations of him that I think people really need to dial back. People get really worked up on Twitter when he throws an interception. This is a young quarterback. He's going to throw a lot of interceptions. Like, if the total is set at, I almost wonder if they have those totals, but if it's 12.5 or something, like if you are telling me that he starts the whole season and throws 28 touchdowns, I got him at 15 picks, right? Like, that's what I expect to happen. And you're right, different practice periods are asking for different things. I thought the first day of pads, the first 11 on 11 was pretty messy for the whole offense. I thought the second day, yesterday in pads, was a lot cleaner. I thought he also got in and out of stuff fast. The first his first 5 snaps in 11 on 11 on the second day of pads, I want to say he went 4 for 5, and the quick stuff looked sharp. And that's what I want to see. I think he has some natural playmaking ability when plays break down and he's got to go off schedule. I think he can do well there. The intermediate stuff, there's been some accuracy questions, but if you can, what the enemy system, Andy Reid's system, Bill Walsh's system, whoever you want to credit it to, what the system calls for is a ton of misdirection, motion, and ideally he's identifying frequently a 6-yard gain based on the pre-snap motion, and the ball comes out fast, and they get it, and the receiver runs out of bounds, the running back runs out of bounds, and it goes fast, right? That is where I think he's starting to get it more and more, and I think that's really encouraging. But you got to have reasonable expectations, and some of it is just like the social media amplification that comes from practice. I feel like Haney will know his name. I can't remember his name. You might know it. There's been I want to say a kid. It seems like he's like a college kid because I've had enough people send me these videos. There's a dude that's like tweeting every play, right? And the media's not allowed to do that. The media's not allowed to give out formations, all these sorts of things. And so then you have a practice like today that was kind of more of a walkthrough, install. Like, Howell looked great today, but it's geared for him to look great today.
Right. Today was an offensive win day, for sure.
Right. Right. And so, like, some of this you need to understand the context surrounding the performance at practice. It's why myself and a million others, I'm really excited for the Ravens joint practices. Probably even more so than the preseason game, but the 2 Ravens joint practices and then that Monday nighter against Baltimore, I think will be all we need to know. And will be all we really get to learn in the preseason period. I also I don't know if you agree with me off, but I feel like Ron could certainly end it, but I feel like we're almost like manufacturing a quarterback controversy.
So I'm glad you brought this up.
Quarterback controversy. Yeah. There's none.
Yes.
Jacoby Brissett has gotten 0 snaps with the ones.
Correct.
0. If this was an actual competition, he'd get some work with the ones, and he's not, and we got to stop talking about it.
Yeah, no, that was literally what I was going to ask you next.
Himself, but he doesn't.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it was what I was going to ask you next, and I was just going to go something or nothing, and that he keeps bringing up Brissett. And I can see that your answer is nothing. But he did it again, not just yesterday in the press conference. On the train ride down to work today, I was catching up on some of the interviews that Kay Adams did on her show. She got like 10 minutes with a bunch of people, and you get a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I saw.
She did a good job with Ron and Sam and a bunch of folks. And he did it again with her, where he's like, don't forget it. And it's the same type of setup, right? Like, hey, we're asking you about Sam because we want your opinion on Sam. And Ron, out of left field, is like, hey, don't forget about Jacoby. And it's just like, what's the point? Like, we know, we can see. There is no point in bringing up Brissett because he has not thrown a route or had a snap where Terry McLaurin is on the field with him. Forget throwing to him. Like, we know what's up here. And I understand they want to give Sam all the reps to try to get ready, and they probably feel like if all of a sudden it goes sideways in Baltimore, they can pull the plug and go to Jacoby and just rely on his veteran nature. But you give him a couple of snaps. So I don't get why they're doing that.
I don't either, dude. I really don't. It reminds me, and I would credit, it's someone you and I both know, but they don't want the credit. Somebody gave me this analogy, and I think it makes a ton of sense. It's like an inverted Ryan Fitzpatrick situation. When Fitz was here and they signed him for $10 million, it was very clear they brought him in to be QB1. And then as we watched practice that year, he got all the work with the ones. But Ron wouldn't name him his starter, right? And he brought up Taylor all the time. It's a similar situation, except it's inverted in that Brissett is the backup and Sam's your starter. But for whatever reason, the veneer of constant competition, I suppose, he feels the need to bring Jacoby into it. I don't think it's I don't think the guys care. I honestly kind of doubt they pay attention, except when they have to do media. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. Here's the thing: you don't have to bring it up now. If Howell goes through Baltimore and then the game and looks awful, then you can just say, you know what, we're making a decision. Right? No one believes it. I don't think. And if you're going to bench him, are you really going to bench him in August? I think that'd be crazy.
I mean, I think the overall thing, JP, is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he says it one way or the other. It's just kind of weird and awkward and forced. But if he stinks, they'll bench him, and they'll if he sucks for let's say he sucks the rest of the week, this week and into next week, and doesn't play well if he plays against Cleveland, and that's something I'm actually curious if you think he'll get snaps being a younger guy. And just the 3 preseason games now. But then he comes back out of Cleveland and stinks again. They'll get Jacoby some snaps against Baltimore in practice. But if he doesn't, then he won't. So, it's in that way, it's the same as any other position pretty much. And I just think it's weird that they keep bringing it up. The one I did find interesting today, though, is, he was asked about Chris Paul's performance, and he was very quick to bring Saddiq Charles back up and be don't get ahead of ourselves. That one I almost feel like it's the other way, though. That is a competition. That thing is on. And my money would be on Chris Paul winning the left guard spot. What about you at this point?
Yeah, I actually asked him that. And I do think Chris Paul is going to win the job. I mean, Saddiq Charles has never been able to stay on the field throughout his career here. But there are Charles advocates in that building for sure. And I think when you look at the two men, Charles looks like the athlete, looks like the better prospect. For me, it almost feels a little Moneyball-ish. In the opening chapter of Moneyball, Billy Beane, they kind of explained that Billy Beane looked like a 5-tool baseball player, and that's why he was who drafted him? The Mets, maybe? And he was this huge prospect, but when it came down to it, he couldn't hit. If you look at Saddiq Charles versus Chris Paul, you would want Charles every time, but Chris Paul's harder to block, dude. He's a better blocker, and he's harder to get around. And I know that there are defensive linemen that think Paul is harder to deal with in one-on-ones and such. So I think eventually, the merit kind of wins out there, and Paul wins that job. I also asked him about Mason Brooks, the undrafted guy who's kind of making an impression. And it is funny with undrafted guys. You paid that guy extra to come here, so you clearly liked him. But Ron and other coaches have done this, almost immediately go into full ball busting mode about undrafted guys. They're yeah, he's showing us something, but he's got to keep it up, rather than if it's a draft pick, you're really developing, we're working with him. It's just interesting, the different kind of demeanor and discussion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. JP Finlay with us for a minute or two more here on the Hoffman Show. Since I brought it up, Howell, does he play against Cleveland a week from tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, you did ask that. I don't know, man. I really don't. In Ron's previous seasons, at least the last 2 in the preseason, he's had a veteran, right? So yep. While, in hindsight, could Carson have used work? Maybe. Could Fitz have used work? Maybe.
Let's be honest. That wasn't going to help. The difference in Carson Wentz's success and failure in Washington had nothing to do with his preseason appearance or not.
I agree. But you had a vet that you didn't feel needed to play, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
This is not that situation. And maybe you want to get Sam to work. But, dude, what's tricky is Jacoby is your veteran, break glass in case of emergency or we're losing our season guy, right?
Yeah.
You really want him playing a ton in the preseason?
Get ready for the Jake Fromm Show, JP. Let's go! Go Dogs!
Dude, I think one thing I am truly fascinated by, Jake Fromm has really struggled when he's been in NFL games. I think that's fair to say if you go back and watch it. I'm really surprised. This is a team that's played at least 3 quarterbacks in 5 straight seasons. I'm surprised it's not somebody with a little bit more of a resume in that 3 spot. And there are people that will tell you they liked what Fromm has done this camp. And maybe they're comfortable with him. And you can always argue by the time you're playing a third quarterback, you're probably screwed anyway.
Correct.
That's a probably legit argument, but I was surprised there wasn't more, that they didn't just try to address it more. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I am big time. If you're on your third quarterback, you are already so far down the tubes that you just should stay there. Just ride it out,
Right.
Get the draft pick, especially where this team is, right? It's not like, it's not like if you're the Chiefs and you're on your third and you're like, well, we got Mahomes. It's not like we need the high draft pick. We're not looking for a quarterback of the future. With this team, like, if something happens weird, like, how close can you get to Caleb Williams? That's what I would want to know. Last thing on the way out, JP, I've kind of had this in the back pocket for 9 minutes now, but what do you, like, if you're a fan of this team and you go to training camp and you tweet out every play, do you hate winning? Like, what are you doing? Like, there's not even a question.
Who's the
I
guy
guess
I'm talking about? I want to credit this kid because he's
Do we?
grinding, man.
Do we? Like, Ant, do you know who I'm gonna bring you back into this? So we've come full circle. Don't screw it up. What do you know who JP's talking about?
I know who he is.
Can't think of his name.
Nah, not necessarily.
But it's also like some folks that are like bloggers and like trying to kind of be in the media, but they're there as fans, and I'm just like, there are rules in place about shooting practice for a reason. And look, do I think that teams are really going to win and lose a ton of games or a game based off of training camp film? By week 3, like you don't really care. It's game film. It is, you're watching that. It is what it is. But like, I've definitely heard of teams having like scouting interns and stuff scour the internet and just start to make a file because you just never know. Like, hey, they ran this in training camp. We haven't seen it yet. Like, I would just say this. If you're a fan of the Commanders and you go to training camp and you want them to win, watch with your eyes, not your phone. And if you do watch with your phone, don't put it on the internet. You're not helping the cause.
Yeah, man, but dude, this is the clout business we're talking about, dude. This is about getting more followers and having people subscribe to your YouTube and whatever else. Like, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. I just don't think people are going to listen to you either. And dude, for some people that came to the camp, they probably love seeing it all. I think.
I'm not telling you that I don't get why it happens. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
Look, the media is not responsible for winning and losing, but we get yelled at all the time like we are. And now we got fans who actually care about it, who are going to training camp and actually negatively affecting the winning and losing, even if it is by some small marginal percentage. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Or there's at least enough paranoid football coaches out there that would believe that's the case. Because football coaches are among the most paranoid in the world.
Do they come in any other kind?
Other teams, right? I believe, and don't quote me on this, but the one thing I know that is happening is there's just less and less and less fan days at training camp across the NFL. I think Philly only does one. I think the Eagles do one. I don't believe the Ravens have a lot of fans at camp. I know they do a practice at M&T. Like, I think the more, and I'm not telling anybody to stop or start or do anything. Do whatever you want. I don't care. But the more and more of this and the more and more prevalent it gets, they're just going to stop having fans out there. If it was up to the coaches, and they'll lie and tell you they love it, if it was up to the coaches, they wouldn't be there. I mean, the Commanders were the only team in the NFL having fans at OTAs and minicamp, right? Dude, Chase Young missing camp was broken because fans were there and started tweeting about it.
Right.
And I remember I called to get official comment, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to comment on voluntary stuff where you guys aren't here. And I'm like, all right, but you got fans putting it on Twitter because they're there. and they're like, oh yeah, shoot. So it's like, honestly, their fan policies, I think, are a little bit antiquated compared to the rest of the league. Now, there's some teams that have fans there every day. There's still some teams going, to the Bills got everybody staying in a dorm for training camp. Like, there's still some of that around, but it's less and less. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if, there's fewer open practices this year. I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues. Especially, dude, if we see an overhaul of staff, say we get to February and everything's changing, who knows what that's going to look like. So, fans should enjoy it while they can. Odds are a lot of this is going to change. And I think in the Dan regime, they didn't spend any money, so the sales folks, the ticket folks, they needed incentives to try to, take care of their customers. And they're like, oh, you can come to practice, blah, blah, blah. And I think as so much of this is all going to change, I kind of think that could change too. But dude, here's the thing. If you want to post a video, post a video. But don't give out formations and plays and, oh my God, Logan Thomas threw a pass. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing is where the fans are, it's basically an all 22 angle. Logan and I could do a film breakdown on our podcast based off fan videos. We would get yelled at for it because we could give actual useful information. But so could a scout from another team. It's just, I don't know. You mentioned it, and I was like, that's a good thing to bring up. So I did. JP Finlay, you can listen to him 10 to 2 weekdays on 106.7 The Fan, Beltway Football Podcast as well with Mitchell. And if you want to hear the roast of Pete as he is on his way out to take a new job up in Connecticut, you can go back on the Odyssey app and listen to that. And if you want to hear Pete cry, then you listen to Beltway Football from yesterday.
I don't know if he ever actually cried. It got close. But he may have held it together.
All right. Well,
yesterday we played golf and he was terrible, so he might have cried.
Yeah, them's the breaks sometimes. All right, man. Appreciate the time. I'll see you next week out there at camp.
Okay, bro. Later.
Thanks for watching this clip of our 2023 Washington Commanders training camp coverage. For more, check out the radio show live daily from 4 to 7 p.m. on the Team 980. We also stream live on the free Odyssey app, or you can watch the show here on YouTube at the Team 980. Subscribe right here for all our on-demand content. Click the button. Go now. Subscribe. And come on, while you're at it, let's be honest. If you made it this far, you probably liked what you saw. So go ahead and hit that like button too before another video starts. It's the polite thing to do.